In the pantheon of ultra-endurance cycling, the race around Ireland is one of Europe's toughest. Participants come from all over the world to pit themselves against this non-stop 2,150-kilometre endurance event. With over 20,000 metres of climbing and racing around the country, north and south, day and night, this really is not for the faint of heart. This is the story of Team H8 Lawlor's entry into the Race Around Ireland 2019. James Lawlor, an amateur cyclist and the director of Team H8 Lawlor, gathered together a set of middle-aged riders and volunteer crew. Working on a shoestring budget, plans were laid for an all-out assault on Race Around Ireland 2019.
Last year, all the teams, including the teams that were nowhere near us at the finish, all started really fast on day one. And by day two, every team, including the winners, ourselves and the team that came third, dropped off the pace dramatically in day two and day three, which was short of a full day. So that's when we got the idea of doing the 8-man event. That idea we discussed the day after the end of the Race Around Ireland last year, when we had all sworn we were never going to do it again because it was so tough and we were so wrecked. But the very next day, in a conversation with Jack Massey, we concluded that it should be always won by an 8-man team. The main reason we set out this year is maybe to try and race all the other years, try and beat all the times from all the different teams from all the other years. So it's racing the teams on the road, but also racing every team that ever raced it before. It's huge, huge amount of planning, huge amount of logistics, a lot of work in it. There's 250 or so, right? If we get to do 230, that's great. And you have to improvise for 20 minutes. We'll only lose a small amount of time, but the thing will be to, if you read the rules here, that's why the AV men and the riders read the rules here, but just great crack. I mean, last year on the road, it's just great crack. It's so competitive. You get so dragged into it. We've strengthened the 4-man team from last year. There's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it that the 4-man team from last year are stronger than they were last year, and the 4 people we've added in, none of them are lesser than the 4-man team from last year. They're bringing more strengths to it. So by that rationale, we should do day 1 and day 2 as fast as we did day 1 last year. And then the challenge will be to finish off the last half day plus 3 hours, 15 hours. It's about being way ahead of the pace when you come to the mountains, and then pace will drop off, and naturally will drop off in the mountains. Wicklow Mountains are by far the biggest challenge. The Cork and Kerry are big, but Wicklow is definitely the hardest challenge. There's more hills, there's more metres climbed in Wicklow than on any other part of the course. I think we have a good chance of having a crack at the all-time record, which is held by the 4-man team of the Strategic Lines from 2012, I think. I'd say 50-50. And that's no disrespect to the other teams, but I really only see one team to challenge us. I'd be very surprised if it isn't us or them.
Lawlor plotted and drove the route. He calculated and mapped the optimum points for 250 changeovers. He inspired his team, motivating, cajoling and threatening to get the very best from each and every one.
So I guess I was, you know, deeply embedded, committed accountant for 25 years, and I continue to do a little bit in that field, so lecturing, postgrads in UCD, in accounting and finance a little bit, and non-exec director work. All the analysis, the planning, you know, the discipline, the professionalism, you know, it's definitely a modus operandi that it needs an outlet, and something like the race around Ireland and cycling and training and all of that, you know, you can, like, people have said it to me joking, like, oh, I see you're just channeling that, you know. Obsessiveness sounds bad, but, you know, that type of, if a job's worth doing, it's worth doing well type approach. I guess I got into the cycling in 2011, yeah, with Paris-Nice, the first year it was done. I've kept with it consistently, very consistently since then, getting progressively madder year by year.
What do I do for a living? I am an accountant by training, but a banker by profession, God help me. I would have been the proverbial couch potato, morbidly obese, and I mean that, clinically morbidly obese. At this end of 11, I was at my worst. Paddy said, why don't you do Paris to Nice? And I went on my first cycle with Paris to Nice from Frank Keane on the 3rd of March 2013. It was Conor rang me, I think it was November, and he said, we're looking for number 8. And I said, wow. And I says, why are you asking me? And we had a chat. And I says, holy moly, that's a big one. Why not? And then I kind of says, why wouldn't I? Why wouldn't I? If the guys think I can add to the team or be part of the team, why wouldn't I? We know there's one or two of us that seem to perform better with a bucket of Guinness, which is just, you know, I never understand it. I'm not one of them. You know, that responsibility to that collective effort not to let each other down is significant. We're in it to absolutely give it our best, and there's a chance we could win it.
I've worked in the flooring industry pretty much all my life since leaving college. Started as a family business, my father and myself, and we started the company back in 1988. Started cycling 5 years ago. Originally just took it up as a way of getting fit and losing weight. Was getting very unhealthy, sedentary lifestyle, and had to do something to get fit again. As soon as I started cycling, my first trip out, I did a little trip around the block of 13k, collapsed on the couch, and I got home and thought I'd never be able to get up again. So then I decided, well, I need to focus on something. So the Wicklow 200 was my main focus. I think we've got a very strong team. It's probably it's as strong as any team I can see out there. We've got very good specialist climbers, which is a big plus when you've got the hills of Kerry and Wicklow to contend with. Logistics is as big a part of it as the actual cycling itself in an event like this. It's not just a case of getting on a bike and pedalling. You need to have all the logistics and backup behind you as well. The planning part of it, we have a lot of experience on planning now that we've done the race several times. So we have a lot of experience in that respect, and every year we've upped the game at another notch each time.
Luke Gerard, time that he's there, where he's heading.
There's a lot of mental involved in an event like this. Dragging yourself out of bed at 3 o'clock in the morning into the pouring rain and into the headwind. We've got as good a chance as anyone. We've all worked really hard to put many, many hours of training in. And we just put our heads down and got stuck in, and yeah, hopefully it'll all pay off on the day.
By profession, I'm a software engineer, involved in one of the tech companies here in Ireland. So went from going on commutes in and out of work to getting, you know, a few hours peace in the weekend to doing more and more of it, and the more and more I did it, the more and more peace I got. And then really it's only the last 4 years probably, more regularly cycling, and then, you know, sporties and various things like that, so it's pretty recent. But we can certainly do as best as we can do, and I think if we do as best as we can do, we can certainly be up there against anybody else who's done it previously.
I'm Cathal Gormley, 52 years of age, self-employed computer engineer and avid cyclist. Started cycling in 2013 as part of some adventure races I was doing and realised that cycling was the bit I enjoyed most. So in 2014 I took on with a charity cycle from Paris to Nice and I've kept cycling ever since. The group that we cycle with are mainly ex-Paris to Nice, and every year we do organise a trip away down to Spain the last couple of years, where we did Pico de Valletta, Anglaroo and Covadonga. So some of the better known climbs over in Spain. We're heading off to Italy later this year for another epic trip. And did Ventoux first as part of Paris to Nice. Since then I have done it once on a holiday and did it again as the Singlays, which is the screwballs, doing it 3 times in one day, 4,400 metres of climbing. Did that in June of 2017. I have carried on in the gym through the winter, mainly spinning, so 4 or 5 spin sessions a week, and then try to get out at the weekends when possible.
I'm a marketing director for a electrical company, Glen Dimplex, and I focus a lot on their international business. Started cycling when I was about 14, so started to do a bit of racing at that age. Competed until I was about 18, and then I got more interested in study to go to university. But this is really about earning the right to ride on the road and really enjoy cycling for what it is. We know how to push ourselves to our limits, and I think also the older you get, you realise that pain is just a means of knowing you exist, and you don't fight it so much, so you accept the pain just to prove that you're alive. I'm in it to do the best for the team, but I believe that the team has the attitude and the focus to win. We're really a team of 4 partners, and so each of those partners need to be able to learn to ride together and encourage each other to go to their limits, and then the sum of the 4 partnerships should help us to really get the maximum speed on the road.
I'm 53. I am married to Joanna, and we've one little girl called Ruby. We were late starters, but enthusiastic, as I always like to say. I lived away from Ireland for a long time. I lived in Romania, and I'm still involved with a number of businesses there. An advertising agency and a market research business. And we live in Dublin, in Rathmines, and I'm involved in investing in young technology companies. So 2010, I got the bike, did the cycle around the Burren, the Tour of Burren, or a sportif in the Burren. And then my first significant cycle after that was the Malin to Mizzen cycle on behalf of ARC. And then I did the Wicklow 200 in 2011. I originally had a Cannondale 6, which I just put pedals back on the other day because I got new pedals for my new Canyon. My Canyon is an SLX, SLV, SLQ. I'm not very good on the technical stuff. There's 3 potential wins. There's winning RAI, 8-man team, 2019. That's got a lot to do with the weather. That's got a lot to do with the various conditions, the form of the team, and how the cookie crumbles on the day. If we could beat the Irish record, that's the 2nd hurdle. And then the 3rd huge achievement would be, can we just break the RAI record, which is held by a team from the UK? So if we could Brexit them from the top of the table, that would be brilliant. The people are seeing this as a much bigger project. It's not just about the cycling. And there's no doubt that when I'm asked to be a crew member for a team in the future, I will be very happy to support people I know, because it's something I'd like to do, because I think I'd get a great bang out of it, and it's nice to give back to it as well. So it continues that circle, that flow, circular flow.
Come on, he's late to the party as ever. That's it, you missed all the brand.
Last couple of summers I've been cycling with Jack, and then he just mentioned it last year, and I thought that sounds like quite an interesting challenge. I was in finance for 20 years, but I'm taking a break, and I'd like to try a bit of lecturing maybe. And then see if I can find some kind of part-time roles, consultancy roles. I'm very open-minded. I started cycling about 10 plus years ago, I wrecked my knee playing football pretty badly. And so I had some surgery, some kind of intensive recovery, and then I asked the physio, what kind of sports can I do now without kind of causing damage? And they said non-contact sports, cycling, swimming, so that's what I kind of moved into. Back in February, I decided to get a coach to try and make things a bit more structured, because prior to that, I just go out for a spin every 2 days and try and kind of hit it hard and just get fitter. And then I thought maybe getting a coach here could be a bit more sensible. And we had kind of 2 targets. There was a race in the Pyrenees about 3 weeks ago. That was kind of a local peak we wanted to train for, and then the ultimate peak, hopefully, being the race around Ireland. If things run smoothly and we get a bit of luck, I can't see why not. And we all obviously have to empty our tanks, but I think all the boys are keen to do that. So I think all the cyclists are strong. I think we're quite blessed because we've got good climbers, great descenders, big diesel engines for the flat. So that kind of mix of players, I think, is perfect.
Yes, voluntary subscription.
Putting their hands to pay for camper vans and food and whatever else. I don't know what I'm paying for, but it doesn't matter.
So the funding model is fairly simple. 8 men putting their hands in their pockets and ponying up to cover the costs of the entry and the costs of the camper vans, and borrowing cars from families and getting around.
Planning left very little to chance. A huge logistical operation with meticulous preparation was fine-tuned in the months before the race. 3 camper vans, 3 support vehicles, and most importantly, 10 crew were needed.
James Lawlor, crew.
James Waters, I'm crew.
Richard Morton, crew.
Kevin Lawler, crew. Simon Ferraro, crew.
I'm Seamus O'Farrell, I'm crew.
Christian is crew. And Mick too. Not forgetting Mark, the quiet one.
I'll say nothing till you know more.
Lawlor and Massey decided on a new approach to the race. They split the team into 4 pairs of riders and matched the abilities to the terrain. The team arranged every detail and, working from Lawlor's master sheet, produced individual driver manuals. These covered each changeover, location, rider in, rider out, time to next location, and exact calculations of the time on and off the bike across the challenge. Each rider was issued segment routes to use on their bike computers. Maps were printed and a number of briefings were held. Every rider wanted to do their best for the team. If victory was to come, it had to come fairly and honestly. On the day before the race, all bikes, equipment and vehicles were checked and presented to officials for race inspection. One final check on race nutrition was conducted. The team attended the race briefing and knew that less than 24 hours later, all the planning, preparation and hard work would quite literally meet the road.
The reason why Race Around Ireland was set up in the first place really was to give people an experience of what it's like to go deep into yourself, to see what you can actually do, to also create an adventure and build that experience around it. And I think for a lot of people to be able to complete Race Around Ireland, it's a huge sense of accomplishment. To take it one step further and bring it into a performance context, then not only to complete it, but to set a new record or to do better than you've ever thought. I think for many people that is the ultimate.
Race Around Ireland 2019 began at the historic Trim Castle in County Meath. The race start is part of a huge celebration in the town, and the party atmosphere is infectious. At precisely 2 p.m, Ralph and Barry took to the start line.
10 seconds to go. Very best of luck to this team. Right, ready for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Off you go.
In parallel to Race Around Ireland, a second sport came into being: dot watching. Fans and followers of the race could watch progress live through the Black Blocks app. Friends and family stayed up through the night, sharing the excitement and watching the competitors live, while Team H8 Lawlors kept race news flowing through their Facebook page. Really close racing was the order of the first number of hours. The race left County Louth and went north, up into the beautiful Long Woman's Grave and onwards into Northern Ireland. With a 6-minute on-the-road time difference, racing was neck and neck, where even a puncture or mechanical failure could make the difference between victory and shattered dreams. With cairn wheelers and H8 Lawlors averaging well over 30 kilometres per hour, this was starting to look like a two-team race. Into the first evening and night, little separated the teams. As dawn broke, the H8 riders were cutting from Donegal into Sligo and had eked out a slim lead. One of the most remote roads on Race Around Ireland is at Easky Loch. The team powered across this awe-inspiring landscape.
Tell me how much fun you're having.
A lot of fun, a lot of fun.
Will be a copy.
No sleep, but a lot of fun.
As the day progressed, an Atlantic front swept in from the ocean and weather conditions worsened. The teams slogged it out across Connemara in driving wind and rain. The strategy of paired riders, short, sharp stints on the bike and long rest periods began to pay dividends. Through the evening and the night, the climbers and descenders pressed on across the Kerry Mountains, with the team reaching the Caha Pass in very difficult conditions not long after dawn on day 3. The H8 Lawlor's big engines of Cahill and Barry took over and pressed hard across West Cork in deplorable conditions. One of the iconic climbs of the race is the feared and revered St. Patrick's Hill in Cork City. Time could be gained or lost, and a clear signal of intent could also be sent out, rallying the team and putting pressure on the competition. Hammering out nearly 500 watts, Ronan Curran saw it off in just over a minute. Through counties Tipperary and Waterford, the riders continued to pile on the pressure. A noticeable gap began to open between the teams. They pressed on hard, only for Tom Marr to lose valuable minutes, stuck behind a herd of cattle on the base of Mount Melleary. Looking to pull back time for the team, Michael Colbert took control and set a blistering pace on the Mount Melleary descent. Fast, safe and controlled descending was just as important to the team as was grinding out the big climbs. At this stage, any mistakes could cost injury, time and victory. The team pressed on. Michael repeated the controlled and powerful performance descending in the dark on the daunting Shea Elliott descent in County Wicklow, dropping over 200 metres in 2.5 kilometres. The team's relentless practice sessions were at last paying real dividends. Through the night, the riders took on some of the toughest climbs and descents in the country. After a tense stint from Kildare to Meath, the team crossed the finish line at Trim at exactly 5:32 a.m. on the fourth day. The overall team time, at 63 hours 32 minutes, won the 8-man race, smashed the record held since 2012, and broke all records for the race around Ireland. This really was something to celebrate.
In a new record time of 60. H8 Lawlor. And you're going to go, what? A few days work here. Tell me about it, though. How did you put the whole thing together?
Well, I didn't actually, because he put it over to me, but it was Jack's idea. Originally. Yeah, he came up with the idea, and I said, that's never going to work. Never going to work. So then I got, I got four sheets of A3 paper and stapled them all together and sellotaped together and got pens and started drawing it on him. Jack says, like, he had it on an Excel spreadsheet no one could understand. When we saw it on the paper, it all worked. So, yeah,
well, the planning was absolutely fantastic. Again, congratulations. The H8 Lawlor guys were incredible within this race, all the way through. We watched their average speed. They started off at a very high speed, and the big question is always, can you maintain it throughout? Because what tends to happen is, as we go further into it, people start to get tired, mistakes start to happen. But actually, they seem to do really well all the way through, and they were able to stick to the strategy, and not many teams can do that. No matter what was thrown at them, they were able to handle it and turn it around, and I think that for them was the clincher.